Well, I want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to stop some of this senseless violence that is taking place on our streets, traumatizing so many communities and ending too many young lives. And that means making sure, first of all, police have the resources, and we're increasing that, making sure also they have the powers that they need. And this is a new power, knife crime prevention orders that will allow the police, working with the courts, to put curfews on young people, to encourage them to go to education classes about the risks of carrying a knife, to even to stop them from using social media in some circumstances, about actually doing whatever you can to prevent them from turning to life and crime.
Well, let's get a little more on this then. Our reporter Alex Isaac's over at the Home Office this evening. Alex, not everybody on board with what Sajid Javid has been saying.
No, that's right. So this knife prevention order is being nicknamed the Knife ASBO, which does mean, as you just heard from him there, that there's going to be putting in curfews and banning social media for anyone from the age of 12 and upwards that is seen carrying a knife or thought to be carrying a knife. So there's potential that there could be a lot more stop and searches on the streets, which are worrying a lot of people. Now, earlier I spoke to the MP John Cryer, who said without any resources or any extra resources, this really isn't going to make a difference.
I think what the Home Secretary is suggesting is just a bit of a cheap gimmick, actually. I'd believe it to some extent if he was prepared to put some resources in. He's not prepared to put any resources in. He's made it clear. There is one thing I'd like to see, and I asked for it last week, so did other MPs, and that is there should be a proper public inquiry into the wave of violent crime. The Home Office have what they call a Violent Crime Commission, which is chaired by the Home Secretary. My understanding is that last year it met something like 4 or 5 times. If you had a proper full inquiry, you could subpoena people, force them to appear in front of you, and you could also get the voices of young people who are going to be the victims, not just the perpetrators.
Now, there has been some statistics out today as well that show that the offences by children has actually risen by 7% over the last year, and it's the 4th time it's risen. But there is actually already legislation in place to deal with teenagers and young people who carry knives. Caroline Liggins told us earlier that by banning social media and putting on curfews won't actually add anything to this legislation.
It's extremely draconian. The process is completely ill thought out. There has been no conversations between lawyers, between youth offending teams, between social services, or anybody actually who is involved and knows about, experts who are involved and knows about knife crime. It is very clear what our legislation is. If you are a youth, you are in possession of a knife, there are ways in which you can be the different types of sentences and even out-of-court disposals. If you are found to be be in possession of a second knife offence, you will be sent to a detention training centre and will be dealt with accordingly for the period of time which the magistrates or judge will see sufficient.
So, Alex, are those who are against the Home Secretary's plan actually presenting any alternatives?
Well, there are a lot of people talking about how this is just another enforcement tool to take young people off the streets. But actually, it's about education and educating young people before they even get into a gang or carry a knife. And that's what Patrick Green from the Ben Kinsella Trust told me.
Ultimately, we need to stop this happening in the first place. No young person is born carrying a knife. It's a learned behaviour, and we need to intervene far earlier to address that. That's why education, early prevention, helping parents at the home, working in schools, all these prove really beneficial in helping young people realise they might be on the wrong path, turning their lives around and make better decisions. So ultimately, we should be doing far more of that. However, if somebody is determined to go and carry a knife, if somebody is determined to get involved in criminality, having missed all those chances earlier on, we do need the powers to deal with that. We need strong laws, we need preventative orders. All these have a place, but ultimately we should be doing more to stop this happening in the first place.
Now, the National Crime Agency are behind the Home Secretary, but they say that a bit more has to be done before this becomes full legislation.